Tonight's show is all about one story, and it is the story of the lottery. It's the story of constitutional reform. It's a story of green belts. It is the story of the right to roam. And I swear to God, I put my hand on my heart on this one, I never thought I would say these words. Please listen carefully to what Bob Monkhouse and Hugh Scully have to say.
Stoneleigh Abbey in Warwickshire was one of our finest country houses. Now, thanks to your lottery cash, it's being restored to its former days of glory. Here's Hugh Scully.
Well, I've seen countless fine properties during my many years' association with programmes about antiques, but I have to say I have never seen anything quite to match the sheer magnificence of Stoneleigh Abbey here in Warwickshire. And when you look at it, it's very easy to understand why they've turned it into a Grade 1 listed building. But the Abbey, which is said to be the model for Southerton in Jane Austen's novel Mansfield Park, was closed because of debts, and the trustees were forced to sell its furniture and stop even basic maintenance. But we're not here just to bring you the bad news. The good news is that the Heritage Lottery Fund has just awarded the Stoneleigh Abbey Preservation Trust a whopping £7.37 million, so saving the property from falling into an irreparable state of decay.
On several occasions over the last 6 years, we've been at our wits' end, and this lottery was the great breakthrough to save this wonderful place.
Stoneleigh Abbey, in this superb setting with its wonderful park and gardens, has obviously inspired many people, among them, of course, Jane Austen. And who knows, once the restoration is complete, it might inspire generations to come. But between now and then, there's a great deal of work to be done.
These are quotes that have come out from the official press releases. This one is from the National Heritage Funds. Demonstrates a real commitment to public access to parts of the Abbey, the gardens and the park. The next quote is from Chris Smith, the National Heritage Minister. This is what he says. To safeguard the future of an outstanding historic house and enable far more people to visit and enjoy it. That is the official line. And every word of it is shit. And I'm going to prove why that is the case to you now. You get a lottery grant of £7.37 million. I want you to see what access you get for this. This is Stoneleigh Abbey. This is where the money's going. Now, what you do get access to is round here. In the bottom bit here, this is the West Wing. You get to visit 5 state rooms. You do not have a right to access to the top 2 floors. The bit here, this is called the Long Gallery. This is the bit where you get to visit for 12 days of the year. A whole 12 days. We get a chance to see it, and you have to book a year in advance. So quite reasonable access, I'm sure you'll agree. Now this bit here, this is a Jacobean house. This is a major national asset. This is stuff that has got leather wall hangings from the 17th century. It's got the works in there. And you will not be allowed in there. Now that is a major national loss. Now I don't know, I seriously don't know, how many Jacobean house lovers there are in Great Britain. I really haven't had time to do the survey. But we managed to rustle up a coach load. It should be a really, really good day. It should be an interesting day. We're going to go up here, which is the Jacobean house. We're going to try and persuade them if we can have one final look, because we really love Jacobean houses and we want to wave goodbye to the Jacobean house if we can't get in. Off we go. Come on. Here it is, you can see it from here. There is one tiny fact that none of the PR people have mentioned so far, and that's an incy-tinsy-wincy tiny little fact that people seem to have forgotten to mention. And that is that what you are seeing there is a private property development. And the thing is, if you wanted to get the developers to admit what they thought the public access would be, you would have to go to ridiculous and extreme lengths. Like dyeing your hair, hiring a Mercedes for the day and posing as property buyers.
Yeah, we came in with my wife and kids and all that, wake up on a Sunday morning, and we suddenly got God knows how many tracksuits wandering through.
I don't think there are going to be huge numbers of people, only because really I can't quite see what apart from walking in the park, what the major attraction's going to be, particularly.
Right.
Yeah, is it the five-state rooms, presumably?
Yeah, they're sort of...
I mean, how attractive are they?
Well, they're not that interesting, really.
This is the National Lottery Fund, and they describe it as a fascinating part of our history is opened up for all to enjoy.
On a certain number of days a year, they're allowed to come accompanied by arrangement, so that it'll say, for example, on, every Thursday afternoon, a group can walk into this space and into that courtyard, look at it, and walk out again, accompanied.
So it's very limited public access.
The public access into this space is extremely limited.
This is Tony Banks. He's the Minister for Built Heritage. Most people think he's just a twat who moans on about football, but he's also in charge of the Built Heritage. And this is what he said. The money is going to be used to preserve the Abbey and its estates for the benefit of the public.
There's no way that going for a walk in the house is going to be like going to Woburn or something, because you've only literally got 5 furnished rooms. So it's not...
So it's going to be, the people who are going to come around are going to be local people.
They're going to be, well, they're going to be all spotted bow ties, aren't they?
Then we have the Stoneleigh Trust. This is what they say. An asset to the community to provide an important amenity for centuries to come.
It's like living in a village here, where at one end of the village you've got, a little museum and an area of parkland which is open to the public. And that's how I see it.
We're all in favour, I think, of restoring the Abbey. That's got to be restored. But when you see the access that's available to the public at such tremendous expense, £10.5 million, it's working out, in my view, at something like £1 million a room. I question whether that's good value for money.
£1 million a room. So, we're not getting good access for money here. There is a scheme called the Conditionally Exempt Land and Building Scheme. This is whereby if you inherit land and buildings, you put it on this scheme and you do not pay inheritance tax. The gig is, though, if your land and buildings go on that scheme, you must let the public have reasonable access. That's the deal. Stoneleigh Abbey has been conditionally exempt for years. We have already paid for a right to access. We've paid. Then the lottery very kindly pop up and say, hey, if you pay again, you can come in. And no one's saying, we've given already, thanks.
I don't think many members were aware of this conditional exemption. All I know is that I've been on the planning committee for many years and I didn't know about it, and I'm not aware of any members that did.
So, not all the stories coming out here. I know some of you are saying, what's the gig here, Mark? How did it happen? This is the story of how it occurred. As with many instances of the aristocracy, it starts with hereditary stuff. Old Lord Lee dies. Little Lord Lee inherits. Little Lord Lee inherits a trust. The trust then make the land and buildings conditionally exempt. Little Lord Lee should open the land and buildings up to the public. Little Lord Lee can't afford to do that. Little Lord Lee's in difficulties. At this point, logic dictates that Little Lord Lee should put his hands up and say, I can't do this job very well, therefore I should sell this off and pay the inheritance tax from the proceeds of the sale. Logic is not Little Lord Lee's strong suit. In the world of logic, Little Lord Lee really is the rabbit caught in the glare of the headlamps. You don't believe me? This is what Little Lord Lee said to the national press. I'm a better £7 million lottery bet than gays, says defiant peer.
There's nobody here at the moment, only my dog. If you'd like to leave your name and number, we will endeavour to call you back as soon as we can. Thank you.
Well, he's breaking every preconception I've got.
This is what happens. The trust cannot afford to run the place. They can't afford to open it up. They should bail out. So what do? They try and turn the top 2 floors into an office development. Would it surprise you if I then said the office development failed? So the office developments failed, and this is where it starts to get weird, because you actually look at the Stoneleigh Abbey Preservation Trust mission statement. This is what they're set up to do. To preserve as national monuments, you've got for the benefit of the nation, encourage access, advance public historical and aesthetic education. It doesn't mention try and build an office block. They then start to get into financial difficulties. They then start to run up debts. The interesting thing is when you look at who they owe money to. I want to show you who they owe the money to. They owe money to first trustee Lord Lee. They own £250,000. So the charitable trust that Lord Lee is a trustee of owes him £250,000.